Today's talk is about the oral tradition, and secrecy is how Native Americans were able to keep their traditions and their cultures. Excellent example of that are the Pueblo right here. The longest continuous lived-in structure in North America, right here, along with their agriculture that they've been practicing for thousands of years. But even the different kivas don't know what the other kivas do, or essentially have their own rituals. Some of them have their own language, which is not unusual for native culture. Mayan children grow up with the women and they have their own dialect, which of course all the children learn because they're raised by the women. But then the boys, when they pass their transition ceremony, they go and then learn the men's language. So that's one of the ways that we were able to keep our traditions. Our oral tradition is really important and has been discounted. The first anthropologist at the Smithsonian was sure that the earliest that the natives came here was 3,000 years ago. And just a few months ago, they found footprints here in New Mexico that date 22,000 years. So what they're finding is that the culture is a lot older than the Western mind thought. And that's the thing about what's happened in terms of the United States government, also the Canadian government, but Hollywood. They depicted native culture as nomadic, as that we all lived in teepees. And, you know, the savage kind of, these people had no language, they didn't have the wheel, you know, they weren't as advanced. Now, in Mesoamerica, their mathematics were more advanced than the Europeans at the time that they encountered each other. The Mayan found out a couple thousand years ago that we orbit the sun, not the other way around, which was the problem Galileo had with the Catholic Church. But in Mesoamerica, the great cities that are down there and the cultures, the Olmec, the Maya, the Toltec, the Zapotec, the Huichol, on and on. The Mexica, who are commonly known as the Aztecs, were the last great manifestation of the cultures in Mesoamerica. And when I speak, I like to say that imagine Western culture, but no recognition for the Romans and the Greeks. That it started during the Enlightenment and from there on. And that's what's missing with Native American culture. Also, I don't know if you've heard about the eagle and the condor, but that was the red eagle of a Nahuatl, which stretched from Nicaragua, which in Nahuatl is, I said Nahuatl, is, what was I saying?
Here is where Nahuatl ends.
Oh, here, Nicaragua in Nahuatl is Nicanahuac. Here's where Nahuatl ends. So from Nicaragua north, the eagle is the sacred bird. From Nicaragua south, it's the condor. But it was the red eagle of a Nahuatl, which the red Mexican eagle is a smaller eagle or whatever, and the blue condor of the Inca confederation. Tiwan Cintuyo, I think I mispronounced, maybe I pronounced it right, but that was the whole hemisphere. And the Incas had corn and we had potatoes in Mesoamerica. But anyway, the trading routes were extensive. And Anahuac, the trading route from Mesoamerica to here, is thousands of years old. Now, if you go to the ceremonies at the Pueblo, you will see macaw feathers in some of the headdresses of the dancers. Also, they use parrot feathers, some of the kivas. And for their turtle dance, they like the huge sea turtle shells. And they've been trading with Mesoamerica for thousands of years. And when I was talking to a couple of the Pueblo elders here, they said, Juan, the Mexica were the last group we traded with from Mesoamerica. We've been trading way back, thousands of years, because their ceremonies are thousands of years. But anyway, through secrecy, and you know, when I was a little boy, my dad was born in Chaman. My grandmother would come back for the piñon and the green chili and the fruit, right? We'd come down 3 or 4 times a year from Denver. But the Pueblo have kept their culture, a lot of their culture, a secret. And when I came here, and we wanted to establish a Sundance here because I'm connected to an organization where we're the farthest Sundance north here. But there are hundreds of Sundances now in Mexico. And now the Aztec dancers dance in front of the Temple Mayor in the Zocalo 24 hours a day. Because there's so many Aztec dancers, right? They dance there and do their prayer there. And there's a resurgence there of indigenous culture. So this area here is very special because here in southern Colorado and northern New Mexico, the adobe starts and agriculture starts here. But that goes all the way down to the tip of Argentina. You'll find adobe, and you'll find, of course, the agriculture. This was the gateway here to the Great Plains, and our brothers, the Plains Indians, who were the plain indigenous people. Try not to say Indian anymore and say indigenous, because that's another thing. We weren't in India, and actually now the new research shows that the native people here are distinct from the Asian people, where the land bridge, supposedly, where they came 3,000 years ago, is anthropology's in crisis right now because that theory doesn't hold anymore. And it doesn't hold in terms of the timing of the glaciers, but it doesn't hold in terms of the oldest finds they've had are down in South America. And when I talked to the Mayan elders there, their strategy was, you know what? These guys have been around here for 500 years, but that's really nothing. We're going to wait them out. We're going to wait them out, which I thought was interesting. But, you know, that's a strategy. But they also said, they blessed us and said what we were doing, keep doing it. So the placement of the Pueblo here is thousands of years old. And you know, here there's a real enthusiasm for sustainable living. Well, there's an example of sustainable living that's been successful for thousands of years here at the Pueblo. and their own agriculture, and of course their mountain where they hunt and fish. And you know, I've had Pueblo tell me, you know, my kids have never had store-bought meat. Or, you know, for us to get a fried chicken or something, that's just a special occasion. Because my kids have had elk and deer and squirrel, they eat squirrel and whatever. They don't have that kind of modern look at how you feed yourself. The indigenous diets were the best diets ever conceived by any culture. Because like Asian cuisine, meat was seen as, what do you call?
Condiment.
As a condiment, yes, as a condiment. And of course, native cultures never given credit for over 60% of the world's food comes from Native America. Oh, here's another interesting thing that the Mayan elders told me. They said, you know what, they've got it all wrong. And we actually took the technology, how to build pyramids, to the Egyptians. And we also took the religion of the sun. And when I first heard that, I thought, well, you know, from what I know from Western history, that doesn't make sense. And the Egyptians are, you know, and then I checked, and no, the Mayans, they're not sure, but they go back as far as the Egyptians. But about 2 years ago, they did the test of King Tut's from the mummy of his skin, and they found coca and tobacco. So maybe they didn't take that technology, or maybe they didn't take the religion, but they sure had a trading route there. And the Mayans talk about that they traded with the people in the Pacific Oceans, that they went to Africa. The Toltec talk about, the Olmec, the oldest culture there, say that they remember when South America and Africa were connected, and they remember the split, and that's where the Olmec come from. And if you go to La Venta, which is a park there in Veracruz, they have all the statues and the relics and stuff that they got from the Olmecs. And Olmec means cord. And there's a statue there of a guy holding his umbilical cord. But there's a cord that goes around it, and when you go around the statue, you see all the different peoples of the world. You know, there was a thing a few years ago saying, oh, the Olmecs came from Africa. There's no genetic, that's not true, there's no genetic lineage there, but because of the big statues that have bigger lips or whatever, they said, oh, they look African. But actually the Olmecs remember a time when that continent, those two continents were connected, and there was one spirituality throughout the world. The spirituality of Mother Earth. And then for the Jewish culture and the Celtic culture, it was the mother, it was the feminine. But then it's, you know, that got deposed, and now we have all these male prophets. Nothing wrong with male prophets. You know, that's good. It's good to have prophets. It's good to have medicine people. Good to have seekers. But here, we don't have a litany. We don't have a Bible. We don't have 10 Commandments. What we have is Mother Earth. And she's our teacher. And the Great Eagle Bowl, which is known as the Aztec calendar, goes back 72,000 years. So that's 72,000 years of the history of the world. And actually it's got Venus's orbit in it, and they don't know how they were able to do that because they had no telescopes. It has Mars. They have the whole solar system, and their orbit's exact. Exact. So getting back to here, so our brothers who were nomads, the Plains Indians, right? And they followed the buffalo. They developed one of the freest cultures that there was. They just followed the buffalo gave them everything, and they were free to roam. And we really appreciate that. And the group that I belong to, in 1981, they came up to South Dakota because they knew about the white buffalo calf woman, which, by the way, comes from the South. And in some depictions, she's wearing woven clothing instead of the white buckskin. That, you know, so there's different interpretations of her. But this group came up after 500 years to take the Sundance Fire back to Mexico, after 500 years. And I was consulted, and I told them, no, that's not going to work. The Catholic Church has too much influence in Mexico, and all the young people, they just want to be modern young people. They want to be young Americans, right? That's the whole thing all over the world for young people. But they decided, the elders, that, and this is the first time that we're doing this, is that by education and by art, we'd be able to make inroads in changing people's hearts and minds. And start talking about our culture, which, as the anthropologists are deciding now, goes back thousands and thousands of years. And you know, they're gonna find stuff that goes back 20,000 years. Because I've had elders tell me, like the Mayan elders told me that, which I discounted. I had some other elders tell me, oh, you know what? They had mercury that they used as a power source in Teotihuacan. And I thought, nice legend, but mercury's usually poisonous to handle. How did they do that? And whatever. And he says, not only that, at Teotihuacan, they grew cotton in different colors and grew giant vegetables. And I thought, well, you know, there's legend, and we have our legends. Western culture has its legends, and Native culture has its legends. But again, they found those canals of mercury under Teotihuacan. So that shows you a couple examples of the oral tradition that it's true, because it's the story of the different peoples and their elders and their medicine people keeping that alive through the oral tradition. There are now Native American anthropologists that say they're doing ceremonial anthropology, that some of them light a fire when they're by a site and say a prayer, and they approach it as, this is sacred, and this is a ceremony that I do, because this is going to help the future generations. So I want to end with the story of the 4 arrows, because that's probably the most important piece that was given to me. And I'm going to go in more detail about this in later talks, but this is the Mexica oral tradition, and it was unknown by me, and I was part of the faculty of ethnic studies and taught an introduction to Mesoamerican history class. But this is the oral tradition, that information's not there. But now these anthropologists are taking the oral tradition plus traditional Western anthropology, and the first discoveries of that are the ruins that they found in Lake Michigan. But that was from the oral tradition, but then the anthropologists looked into it. Yes, they found that. And also in Mesoamerica, they found some submerged temples that the oral tradition had said was always there. But because of the colonial mentality of anthropology, the first anthropologist at the Smithsonian Institute, his research was famous for saying that the first people that came here was 3,000 years ago. And that native people didn't have the intellectual capacity to be modern people. So that's why eugenics came out of that. And, you know, that was the whole idea, was that we need to get rid of this inferior human part of the human race. And I don't know if you know this, but the Nazis came to Vermont and studied eugenics and then took it back, and that's how they passed the first laws of that Jewish people couldn't intermarry with German people, and they used that. So there's this colonial mentality that we all have that isn't right, but that's what we're trying to do, is decolonialize our minds, but also we found that everyone needs to decolonialize their mind. You know, this wasn't a new world. It was part of the old world. The cultures here are as old, and we're, dare I say it, well, the time that the Spanish came to Mexico, Tenochtitlan, which is Mexico City, when I taught, there was an argument about, well, it might have been the biggest city in the world, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe Constantinople was bigger, maybe Venice was bigger, but now they've agreed that Mexico City was the biggest city in the world at that time. It was a city that was done with urban planning, all their cities, and Chaco Canyon is an example of that. And that's a Mesoamerican city because it was planned before it was built. Just in the last couple of years, they found hundreds of miles of road around Chaco Canyon. And in the article I read, the engineers were amazed at how straight the lines were on the roads. Also, the argument was that there were 4-story structures at Chaco Canyon, but a lot of architects said, no, Adobe couldn't handle that kind of weight, and maybe at the most they were 2-story. Again, they found out that there were 4-story high buildings at Chaco Canyon. It was a university center, and that's another thing that Mesoamerican cities were. Because, and this is all an introduction to the ceremony of the 4 arrows, but 1,200 years before the establishment of Mexico Tenochtitlan, there was a ceremony that was done in Coacalco, Mexico, which means serpent. And on the serpent of the mountain there was a jade pyramid. And they would shoot arrows in the 4 directions. And following those arrows were families carrying the 3 sisters, corn, squash, and beans, but carrying medicine, but also carrying the spirituality, the social political structure, participatory democracy. Native democracy is different. There were men's and women's councils that were equal, and decisions that were made in those councils had to be unanimous. So in native participatory democracy, you were never forced to do something in your mind and in your heart that you felt, no, I don't want to do this, I don't feel good about this. You were never forced, because choice, which is like the free will of the Christians that God, but for us, here being on Mother Earth, is your red road from the time you're born until the time you die. And that is your individual red road. It's unique to you. It's like that calendar I'm talking to you about. There's no duplicate days. Every day is different the way the calendar is set up. You are unique. The individual is given that respect, or is the foundation of their council systems. Another important fact about this is that it's a feminine model of democracy. It's a circle. And it's a ceremony. Real fast, I'll explain the ceremony. Before you go into the council, you're smudged, just like I smudged here. And scientists have found out that copal and like sage clear the air of the impurities. Like 87%, I think, which is pretty good. But you're smudged before you go into the circle. In my first experience, I was translating for my teacher, right? Because he spoke Spanish, and it was elders conference that was held in Washington State, and there were elders from all over the country that came. And from Mexico and Canada too. But that's what really startled me, or surprised me, is that everybody knew the ceremony. They all knew the ceremony, whether they were Apache or Iroquois or Cree or Creek Indian or Pueblo or whatever. They all knew that ceremony because they all had those ceremonies. That's how it was. It was universal. And that's when this group came up. They were the Kapuli Kwakalico. And their battle cry was one culture, one continent, saying we're the same. And for natives here in America, we've been taught that we were different. And to get your tribal recognition, you have to prove that you had your own language, your own custom, your own government, that you were separate. And the stories that were told were about the conflicts that Native Americans had. When I was teaching back east, there were some anthropologists that said, gee, Juan, we know that the mound cultures are from Mesoamerica and from what we found in the mounds. But you know, there's not an archaeological trail, and they draw a straight line from the northeast down to Mesoamerica. Well, those expeditions I was talking about, they didn't travel in straight lines. They traveled in spirals. And that's why you see the spirals here in the picture. The petroglyphs. And the Cree, the spirals in a lot of their art and symbolism, and also the Cherokee. Cherokee artists always have a little spiral. Some of them, even when they sign their name, they do a little spiral. Because that's how they traveled in spirals. So I didn't find this out until later, and when they would say that, I would go, I wonder why you can't find the archaeological trail. Well, because it was a spiral. So the arrow to the south went as far as Nicaragua, and there they met the Confederation of Anahuac, and they formed an alliance. And there's a glyph in Mexico that has the red eagle and the blue condor in an X like this, and that's the symbol for us of the Nahuioli. It's also that in the Gray Eagle Bowl, the Aztec calendar, you know, the middle there, they have the four of the worlds like this, and that's the Nahuioli, which represents movement and evolution. But that's this talk about the eagle and the condor, again, goes back a long time to an alliance, how this country was. The first public education, Mexico Tenochtitlan. All the boys and all the girls, they went to separate schools, but they all went to school in Mexico Tenochtitlan. They had indoor plumbing. They had canals running with fresh water and with salt water coming in and out of the city. They had a social service, and supposedly you could walk barefoot in the city and the bottoms of your feet would not get dirty, because they had a social service that swept out the city every night. So it was a planned city. It was it was the most advanced city in the world at the time. You know,
Was that? When was that?
when was what?
That city was built?
Oh, it was built when, you know, I was talking about the calendar. Well, and this is new. This is all new, and that's why I smudged. Because the Mexica brought that information here, but traded with the people here. But here is that culture that is indigenous America, that adobe permanent structure agricultural that stretches from here, southern Colorado, all the way down, the whole hemisphere. And we only found that out by investigating and talking about these journeys and the migrations. One of the reasons that the colonists were able to come and survive is that on this hemisphere, because we've checked with the people in South America, the last 2 rows of corn, or the last 2 rows of what was ever planted, were for people who were on the road. That if you were traveling, you always had food. And that's when the Spaniards that came from Florida and came directly here, they didn't go to Mexico, they found food all the way, and they learned that you could take the last 2 rows of whatever it was. That was for people on the road. And also that meant that you could travel the whole hemisphere. You had the right to do that. And there were these trading routes that were so extensive. And what the marvelous thing about them, there wasn't a profit motive. It was a fair trade. What you traded, you felt that the value of what you were getting, it was a fair trade, right? And you made that trade, it was bartered like that. There was no profit motive. There wasn't trying to, well, I need to get a little more out of this because I have a profit. No, it was a fair trade. And when I talk to economists about it, they go, oh man, I don't know how that would work. You know, you need money and you need whatever. Although the Europeans tried to do that. We started at Sundance with the Wampanoag in Massachusetts because our elders felt it was right for the people of the first light, because they're the first people over there to see and feel the sun. So the Europeans saw their wampum that they did, and if you get a chance, Robin has a necklace that has some wampum on it. It's a whale from a Wampanoag lady that still works with wampum. But anyway, they said, oh, here, why don't you use this as money? And that was like, you know, they weren't used to that. Think if we didn't have the profit motive. I mean, this is hard stuff to think, because we're all, you know, decolonialize your mind and imagine a world where there wasn't a profit motive. Think of all the evil that is created by a profit motive. Think about if, you know, I was talking about that council and how it's a ceremony. Oh, and one of the things I was told, because I was interpreting, they were saying, now you have nothing to say. You're interpreting. You go in there and you have nothing to say. But when they smudged me, they said, okay, now, you want to be like a hollow bone. You want to empty your head, because you don't want to have an internal dialogue going on, or your biases. Just empty your head and empty your heart, so that when you listen to these people, you can empathize with them. You know, that you're not thinking of, oh, what am I going to say? Or, You know, how am I going to respond to so-and-so? No, listen. So, think about it. So you go around that circle for as many times as you need to have consensus. Everybody had to be in agreement. And the council system works that you're passed a sacred object. At this particular elders council, they brought up Sitting Bull's pipe. And that's what you would hold while you talked. And the reason that you have a sacred object like that, remember to tell the truth. In indigenous culture, the most severe penalties weren't for murder, weren't for robbery, they were for lying. Because native spirituality in culture is based on the truth. On the truth that we're all on Mother Earth right now. Even though there's a wood floor here and there's asphalt or whatever, you can't escape that. You're on her. And she's going to take you back. You know, there's these science fiction movies where they shoot the guy off into space that died in the... That hasn't happened, and how sad. How sad. Because the film you're going to see, there's an elder in there, Doc Anderson, who is a famous Navajo medicine man that flew all over the world to do healings. But he talks about how Mother Earth is calling him. He goes, I don't want to be shot out into space. Mother Earth is calling me, come back, my daughter. Come back, my son. I'm going to wrap my arms around you. And the idea that Mother Earth doesn't belong to us. We belong to her. That's something that the colonialized mind has also, you know, she's there to extract. She's there to take whatever you want. You know, that was one of the excuses for taking all the land. Well, the natives don't exploit the land. You know, they're not building factories or whatever. No, they're living in the Garden of Eden is what they're doing. When I taught at the University of Utah, they had all the correspondence from Cortez to the King of Spain, and which was very interesting, but one thing hit me like a slap in the face. The king wrote to Cortez, well, what do you need? Do you need doctors to come? Do you need provisions or whatever? And Cortez wrote back to the King of Spain, no, don't send any doctors. Their medicine here is better than what we have. And this is truly the land of Satan, because there is no hunger here. And I kind of knew what he meant, but I went to the history department and asked some historians. I said, how would you interpret this? And they said, well, one, the history of Europe is a history of wars and famine. And of course, the Catholic Church would say to the poorer people or the other, look, whatever you suffer, it's okay, because you're going to go to heaven. The more you suffer, the better it's going to be in heaven. The more you starve, that's better for you. But here was truly the land of Satan, because there was no hunger, because they were expert agriculturalists. Because when the Spanish conquistadors saw what is now the Merced marketplace in Mexico still exists, they thought, someone said, oh, we're hallucinating. Because it was bigger than any marketplace they had ever seen. And like I said before, it was all a fair exchange. It wasn't a profit motive. So that's an example, just a short example. Now this film that we're going to watch is about different tribes. There's the Hopi in there, and there's Leonard Crow Dog. Like I said, there's Doc Anderson. A lot of it is historically valuable now. But it's the story of indigenous culture, which is very diverse. You know, even in ceremony, I first Sundance with the Cree. And every Sundance there was done by a family, and every weekend they had a Sundance. But they were different. you know, they did a different move, or they had a different way you come into the circle or whatever. And that's true of all indigenous America. It's diverse. But we all believe in our spiritual teacher, Mother Earth. And that says it all right there, Mother Earth. You know, we just had Earth Day the week ago or whatever. But for Native America, every day is Earth Day. Everything that you do has been because you've learned it from Mother Earth. And, you know, for some anthropologists, they go, oh, you know, these people just got up and left. And there's, you know, there wasn't disease. It didn't seem like there was any war or whatever. Well, they knew when they were in an area long enough and they looked around and they saw that there was degradation, it was time to move on. And they could get together and do that. So here, this film called Ancient Spirit, Living Word is about the oral tradition, but it was the first attempt that we did to tell Native America and everyone about this story. And the elders believe that this is a time of prophecy and change that we're in right now. This was, you know, what was it, 2012, where they did, oh, it's the end of the world because it's the end of the Mayan calendar, you know, and there's nothing more. Well, no, the count just starts again. And actually, there's 5 worlds which are 12,000 years old in the Eagle Bowl, but that date in 2012 was the end of that calendar, but the new sun, they called the epoch suns, but now our new sun is here. Our new sun has risen. And this is supposed to be a time where humankind is going to become more conscious. We're going to evolve. But this is the indigenous sun. And I feel like that's what's happening now. This art show and this film, and how people are reconsidering Native America, their social political structure, and also something that they had that I don't think any other culture had, is that women had power and equality. And you know how I was talking about the council system is feminine? Think about it. Our system is linear. What is it? It's a debate. It's a contest. And there's one winner, and then you're a loser if you're not the winner, right? And that's a male version. May I say toxic male version of how you make decisions. And what's happening? We're at war again in Europe. There's always, oh, we might go to war. Because why? That's the first thing males do. They get pissed at each other and they get in a fist fight. You know? I had an elder when first time I went into the Sundance Circle. He said, a Sundancer is the same spiritual grade as a woman who's had a child. And when you go in there, it's to learn to surrender. And when I was in camp, there were some young guys, right? And some of the lady Sundancers came, and you hear comments like, oh, look at that. And, you know, the kind of comments that guys make. An elder came and said, no, we're not talking about that here. You leave that stuff outside the circle. If you've got those kind of attitudes, leave them outside the circle. Here, it's not. Because you're going to find out that those women Sundancers are stronger than the men. And yeah, by the 4th day, the men are struggling. It takes many years for a male Sundancer to be there and to feed off of that spiritual energy. But you look across the circle, and there's the women, boy, and they are dancing strong, and you can just feel that they are feeding off that spiritual energy. But that's the truth, and that's what our culture has lost. Another thing that, you know, that I've researched, that I've found, is that, you know, in those men's and women's councils for communities, and this is whether you're a clan, you're a nation, you're a tribe, or you're a confederation. You know, we still have the Iroquois Confederation in the East. And that's how natives were organized in confederations. It was a confederation of Anahuac. It was confederation of the Inca in South America, because they kept their autonomy. But more importantly, when we say Mother Earth, this spirituality, you really learn to develop a relationship with Mother Earth, a real one. Not I'm gonna go for vacation off in this beautiful place in the mountains or whatever, but then I'm going back. No, you learn how to love her. You learn how to appreciate that, you know, the air we're breathing right now, the food you're gonna go eat after this, the water that we drink, it's all given to us. She gives us everything. She gives us life. And that's our spiritual basis, is Mother Earth. So, questions?
Thank you very much. Very insightful, all that you shared. One thing that came to mind when you were speaking about the indigenous people have been here for so long, and their practice goes back way beyond anything we've ever been taught. And it makes perfect sense that it has. And that some ceremonies could take, you said 1,000 years. Not necessarily a ceremony, but a particular event was a 1,200-year cycle or something. And that the indigenous people said, we can wait. Well, being a little vague, but I think you know what I'm talking about. The question I have is, in the indigenous spirituality, was there something like a reincarnation, or did spirit return to continue the lineage?
For us, we believe we have a spirit. We believe everything has a spirit. We call the four-leggeds our cousins. We realize that we're connected to all life. So, let's see, I've gone off. Could you state your question again?
Reincarnation, where
Oh.
ancestors would return.
Yeah. Okay, here's what we believe. We believe, first of all, there's no death. There's just transformation. And that I was talking about, you know, your individual red rose time when you're born until you die. Your consciousness doesn't die. Your spirit doesn't die. It's mortal. So, yeah, like the Aztec warriors, they would pray that they would come back as hummingbirds or butterflies, and felt like that their lives were so beautiful because all they did was pollinate flowers and be with the flowers. But yeah, there's that. For most Native Americans, the idea is, well, for the Plains Indians, it's a happy hunting ground, right? And there's a journey there. But there's always a connection. There's always a connection. We pray to our ancestors because they're not dead. And your spirit's not going to die. Yeah, your body will go back to Mother Earth. You know, because we're made up of the same, we're all made up of stardust. You know, and if you talk to some physicists, they say the same thing. You know, we're all that energy and matter from the Big Bang. And that created everything, so we're related that way. But in this spirituality, you get to a point where you realize, yeah, there is just transformation. And you realize, Netzalcoyotl, who was a poet in Mesoamerica, but he wrote a poem, we are here only to dream, not to stay, only to dream. Like a bird that comes to a tree in the night and is gone in the morning, we are here only to dream, not to stay. So there's that understanding that your life is sacred. And one of the things my teacher said was that, for the old people, they didn't want to wear shoes. They wanted to feel Mother Earth under their feet. And every step, in fact, this is in the film, Leonard talks about it. Every step you take, you decorate her face. And every breath you breathe is a prayer. And said some of our elders have that spiritual ecstasy where they greet the sun and it's just one prayer and it's an openness to what you're getting. You know, like I was talking about, you go into council, open up. Because if you don't open up, you can't change. If you don't become vulnerable, then you're not going to be able to know what it feels like to feel vulnerable and not be able to connect with a majority of the people in the world. Because there's food shortages, there's, you know, and now with global warming, there's these migrations, and of course they're going to happen. And you know, it's kind of funny to me, there's at the southern border, you know, and here they come and whatever. Well, you know, in Guatemala and Honduras, it's too hot, they can't grow crops anymore. And that'll happen here too. There'll be migrations here too. You know, people that think that it's a good investment to have real estate in Florida, they might rethink that. And especially now, because, you know, all the talk about these conferences that we have and the corporations are going to save us, especially big gasoline companies, right? They're the ones that are going to make sure we make the transition. All that is not going to work, and people are waking up to it. And Native culture is an example of sustainable culture that has a historical presence. Those are stories, right? And that's Native culture, is about a story, about the story from our ancestors, but more importantly, it's about your story. It's about your story. Your life here is really important. We believe that there's a relationship to the whole cosmos and the individual, but also it's reciprocal. There's a relationship of the individual to the whole cosmos. Native culture is a cosmic interpretation of existence. It's not that no exit, existentialist kind of. I was just reading something about the new pictures from the telescope that they're seeing farther into the past. And there was one astronomer that was saying, well, you know what, we know that in I think it was 1 billion years, the sun is going to turn into a dwarf and the earth is going to get sucked into it, and that'll be it. There will never be a word spoken or a thought, never a thought again. And I thought, and he was sad about it, and it was, you could feel it in his writing. But for us, that isn't true. You know, your spirit lives on. And how that spirit manifests itself, whether you come back as a butterfly or a hummingbird, or you come back as another human, or a lion, or whatever, you come back as water, as the wind. Whatever you come back as is that essence, and you're connected. And that's like what I've learned. You know, when I came to this, I was a scientific materialist, and I felt pretty much that all religion was kind of like how Marx described the opiate of the masses, and you know what happens, they fight, there's hunger, there's war, whatever. And I just kind of thought, well, and then when I got involved in this, and the spirituality is so central to Native culture, that I was, this is valuable because it was their religion and whatever. But then an elder came to me and says, it's not a religion, it's a spirituality. Our Bible is Mother Earth, you know? And how you walk, your earth walk defines you. And you have the choice, because life is hard. and you're gonna have tragedy, you're gonna have failures, or whatever, but you can choose whether you're still gonna be happy and appreciate your life. And I do that every morning, or try to every morning, pretty regularly. I am now. But when that sun comes over the horizon there, you thank the sun, tonatu, in our language, for a new day, for another day, because nobody's guaranteed tomorrow. And you don't have to be who you were the day before, you can change. So that's like a prayer that I do. I thank the sun, for coming up again and for giving me another day of life. And I need to make this day good. And I need to do my best this day. And that's, it's that kind of place that it puts you in. But we also believe there are many paths to the Creator. And we're not saying we're the only one or we're the best. This is just ours. And if you take anything away from this, please support Native people that they can continue their culture and their ceremonies, because that's all we're asking. We're not, probably some people will ask for reparations or whatever, but all we're asking is that we stop hurting our mother. And we all do it, man. We're all driving cars, and we got to buy this stuff. It's almost impossible to get out that cycle that we're in. Well, try. My elder said, Juan, you can be a pessimist, and you can say this isn't going to work, but you can't stop trying. So, we're going to talk more about the council system. In other talks, I'm going to talk about the 4 arrows in more detail and the setting up of how the people left from Chaco Canyon and what that meant, and how the city was set up, and how the ceremony of the 4 arrows is just another cycle that we went through, and that now we're in our new sun. But it's a new sun for all of us. Because, if we're going to call the 4-leggeds our cousins, and that we're related, certainly our own kind are our brothers and sisters. And we believe there's just one race, the human race. And that we all live on Mother Earth. It sounds simple, but it's very layered.
I love the philosophy and the truth of what you're speaking. It's fantastic. But when you talked about this telescope looking into the past, you made me think of something I've been wanting to ask with the Native Indian. Relationship with extraterrestrials.
Oh, the brothers from the stars.
Yeah.
Well, we come from the stars too, right? But there's a relationship to that. We believe that there's other peoples in the universe. Not like that poor scientist who said, oh, that's it, no more words, no more thoughts. Also, we believe that thoughts are prayers, and they come from another dimension. The Bible, doesn't it say at first there was the Word, and the Word was God? Well, that word, that prayer, comes from not this dimension. Just like we don't come from here. When you're born, you're coming from someplace else. When you die, you're going back there. But that's how they see it. I was completely a skeptic, but I've seen so many UFOs at Sundance. The Sundance seems to attract them at night, and I was with my son one night because we were watching the fire, and we saw UFOs all night long. And he goes, oh God, Dad, I can't believe I'm seeing this. But, they were coming, they were circling, they were splitting up, they were going off the horizon, and I didn't know, but some people told me that our last Sundance that they saw extraterrestrials or spaceships or whatever they are. The ones I saw were like they looked like really bright stars, but they would move in crazy ways and then they would do formations. And they were there all night. And then in the morning, what happened is that all the different ones went to one. And they looked like a star, and then it just kind of faded in the sunlight. Because I thought, are these guys gonna go, or what's happening here? But no, there's, to think that there's not other life in the world, that with all the millions of stars and planets, there's not some other form. Because they have, it's the same elements. It's the same whatever, and then life is so, the first life on this planet was fungus and there was no air. It breathed or lived on gases that we would be killed by. But through the evolution now we have a lot of oxygen, which people don't realize, And that's the thing, well, how are we gonna solve this problem? Let's plant more trees. But anyway, any more questions? Let's, for those of you who want to, can go watch the film. I suggest that if you're like me and you're older, that you take a chair